Soybean cyst nematode cost Nebraska farmers more than $45 million last year in lost yields. The total nationwide surpassed $1 billion. As we've told you before, the Nebraska Soybean Board covers the cost of analyzing soil samples for SCN from your fields. Loren Giesler joined us earlier this week to talk about the partnership between the Nebraska Soybean Board and UNL Extension. Since 2005, Nebraska growers have submitted nearly 5,500 samples, and SCN has been found in 29 counties for the first time as a result. That brings the total to 56 counties with SCN, and those counties produce more than 93% of Nebraska's soybeans.
Well, for the last 9 years, this would be the 10th year the Nebraska Soybean Board through the Checkoff has funded our cyst nematode sampling program, where growers or agricultural farm managers can submit samples from their fields and find out whether or not they have cyst nematode. They basically just can collect that sample, send it in, and we'll send them the results on whether or not it's there and what the numbers are.
Anything unique about 2013 in terms of where you found it or how many samples were sent in overall?
Well, there's a few things. So for the last 5 years now, John Wilson, who's an extension educator up in Burt County, came up with this Toad Award way to kind of announce these different things, that we've put those out. In 2013, we did have the most samples we've had of any year of the program. We had over 1,000 samples submitted. We did find a couple new counties. Every year we've done this, we've found at least one. Last year we had two, and those two we had in Custer and Rock counties. Moving further west, we're starting to fill that map in on distribution. We had some high samples. Every year we have high samples. This year I think it was 66,000 that was high. In the past we've had a lot higher than that.
Right.
We've seen 130,000, for example, and a lot higher numbers. So, but in any event, when we get into a scenario where we have high numbers like that, that's usually a situation where that farmer didn't know they had cyst nematode in the field.
This is now, as you said, it's spreading farther west, and it's covering a significant portion of the soybean growing area in Nebraska. 93% of the soybeans, it's kind of accounting for all of that area. So this is a big deal for Nebraska farmers. The varieties, the resistant varieties that that farmers are planting, have they been effective against soybean cyst nematode?
Well, they are, and that's really the number one choice in managing this, is growing resistant varieties. We still have quite a few popular susceptible varieties. Those are becoming less common, but with some of those being real high yielding and something that farmers like to pick. Mm-hmm. So that's where knowing if you have it or not is really key. And then using those resistant varieties, on average we see between 5 and 6 bushel per acre if we look across all of our trials when we compare that resistant susceptible in an infested field. And it can be a lot higher than that. You
broke this down by counties, and in Seward and Knox County, 86% of the samples that were sent in actually tested positive for soybean cyst nematode, but across the board about 36% tested positive. Is that a lot? Is that not a lot compared to usual?
That's actually a little bit high compared to what we see. We usually see in the high 20s as far as percentage of positive samples, and that's one key thing. While it does cover a large area in the state, it doesn't cover every field in that county distribution. So in any event, it's not something that someone should really assume because their county's positive on the map that they have it, and a lot of times they could be giving up a little bit of yield if they don't have it. So that's where we really encourage the sampling program, and just to find out if they have it or not, because it's very sporadic. It's site specific, and field by field will be positive. Usually if a grower has it, they'll have it in a lot of their fields.
More than likely, the grower has that seed bought for this season, but if you haven't experienced soybean cyst nematode before, once that growing season starts, what are some things to look for off the bat that might alert you that you need to sample at some point?
Well, the biggest thing, and even now they can do that, looking back at yield maps. If they have soybean yields that are dropping, slightly over time, and their corn yields are staying stable or increasing, that's an indication that cyst nematode could be in the field, because it directly affects the soybean crop and not other crops. The other thing are just pockets in the field that have low yield to look for. Any kind of stress, if we get a drier situation this coming year, then we're going to be looking at pockets that have some form of nutritional or drought stress. That can be an indication, but there's a lot of things can do that, so that's a hard one. So really, in the end, the biggest thing is to just take that sample and do that. The other thing to comment just a little bit on management, there are some seed treatments that are coming out that you're going to see in the marketplace, and just to make it clear that those are not really something to replace those resistant varieties, but to use in combination with resistant varieties. I think we've had some of those questions come in, and I think it's important to use any of those seed treatments marketed for nematodes. If we're going to use that in soy, just use it in combination with a resistant variety.
To learn more about this project or to pick up a soil sample bag, you can contact your local UNL Extension office.